So on the first scramble, Matty actually goes for green cross, and he also manages to get a free first pair. So let's look at exactly how he does it. He's going to set these two up to be a free pair. So what he does first from this orientation is he does an F, which brings the white-green edge to this layer, so that now when he does a U prime to insert this and then a D, this edge is ready to be inserted and this one is also in a good position. So then he does a wide R to insert this. And now instead of just doing D R prime D2, he does a U to preserve this and then D R prime D2. So it gives him a free first pair. Then for the second pair, he probably inspected the white and red pair. So he does L U prime L prime and then he inserts it right here. That gives him a free third pair, which is quite nice. And then he's got this pair where the corner is already inserted, the edge is back here. So he does the most basic solution for this, U L prime U L to pair it up. And then U, insert like that. It gives him this WOLL. I use a different L for this. Matty, of course, is very good at doing lefty turns, and then he also gets a lefty J perm. So a pure lefty last layer. Over here, I really like Matty's choice for the first three pairs. He gets a free first pair, and the second pair also leads to him getting a free third pair. The one thing I may have done differently is the last slot. So here Matty just does U L prime U L. My guess is it's because either he prefers to get a free build pair because it's easier to predict OLL, or maybe this is just what he's used to. But here you have one misoriented edge. So instead, if he just did L prime U prime L and then inserted, it would give him EO. And in fact, here you can see that it gives him an OLL skip. So maybe this would be marginally faster. Of course, it gives him a slightly nastier PLL, but just something to consider. On the second solve, Matty goes for blue cross. So you can see that there's a very nice block that's built over here. But rather than treating it like a block, Matty kind of uses this corner and its corresponding edge to sort of make it a free pair. And he inserts it before finishing his cross. So it is technically an X cross. So over here, he's first going to do D prime F, which breaks up the block, but it's not an issue. It inserts these two cross edges. Then he does R2 to insert this cross edge. And now as you can see, these two have been turned into a free pair. So he does D2, U2, inserts the free pair, L prime, U prime, L, U2, and then inserts this edge. Quite nice. And again, I'm pretty sure Matty saw this in inspection, but this edge was solved in the scramble and it remains solved throughout the X cross. So he rotates and he's going to keyhole this pair. Just like that. Now he's going to go for this pair. He does it with a commutator. And it gives him a very basic last pair. OLL and R perm. I really like Matty's cross plus one here. He doesn't really get too attached to this block. He isn't afraid to break it up. There is another way you can do the same cross plus one. I'm not convinced that this is better, but it's still a good solution to know. So what you could do is D prime F R2 D2. So it's like the same start. And now you have this edge in the back and the same free pair. So what you could do is actually insert the edge first and cancel into solving this pair. So it'll be like L F prime. Then instead of just doing an L prime to bring this corner up, you first do a U prime and then L2 U prime L. It's a little bit trickier to finger trick, but I believe it saves a couple of moves. However, I'm not sure if execution wise it'll be faster or not. The other small change I would have made would be for the third pair. So I think Matty maybe does not prefer mixing lefty and righty moves for a given F2L pair. But the way I would have done this pair is to do L prime U L, and then that gives a free pair. And it also orients his edges. So he can do that. And then, yeah. Again, I'm not sure if this is necessarily faster, but in this case, it does end up giving EO, which I think would have led to a slightly nicer last layer, but he still got a pretty easy OLL case. On the third scramble, he actually does white cross. So you can see that the pieces are in a slightly awkward position, but he actually does it pretty nicely. So he kind of starts with white in the front like this. Then he does an R white prime to insert this. Then a D, L prime to insert white blue. And then he's just got this pair left. So D prime, F prime. And it gives him a very nice first pair. And actually, I'm pretty sure he inspected this as well. It kind of acts as a good multi-slot for the second pair. So he does U prime, goes for this pair, which gives him a built second pair. So very nice start to the solve. He's got an easy enough third pair. And then he's got this last pair. And the way he does it is U prime, U, R to turn it into a built pair and then insert. This is not the best OLL, but he does end up getting an A perm. So it works out pretty nicely. And this does end up being his fastest solve of the average. I really like Matty's inspection over here, where, he goes for a very solid cross plus 2. So first pair in the back left and then a free pair for the second pair. In this case, doing the second pair normally is good because the back right slot is actually empty. So this ends up being a very nice 5 mover, just like that. But for instance, if the back right slot was occupied, or if this was a different pair, there is a very nice multi-slot you can do in this case, which is just to insert this pair with U2 L prime U2 L to turn this into a free pair. However, in this case, I'm not sure if it'll be better because it does involve a lot of consecutive U2 moves. So yeah, I think what Matty did over here is fine. And finally, we get to arguably the most important solve of the average, the deciding fourth solve, in which Matty locked the NAR average. So here he's going to do yellow cross. And it's pretty clear why. You can see that you've got this block over here and this edge. So they can both be brought into good positions in just a single move. So what Matty does here is he starts with blue on top and he's going to insert this by doing a U. Then he's going to bring this edge down by doing an R white prime. So you can see that it creates the square and it inserts this edge. So as long as he doesn't tamper with these during the rest of the cross solution, he's got an X cross. And you can see that it's a pretty easy finish. He's going to do D prime, U prime, F. And now here, instead of just inserting this, he's also going to cancel into the orange and green pair. So he gets his first 2 pairs in the back, which is really good. And after this, he's also going to cancel into this pair. He's going to split them up like that, rotate and insert. And then he's got the last pair, which is arguably the most interesting part of this solve. So he does a commutator to pair it up. And now, if he just inserts the pair and goes straight into OLL, it gives him a very nasty G perm, and he is going to talk about this later. So what he actually does over here is, it's a VLS, but it kind of cancels into this OLL CP. So he does R, U, R prime, U2, and then a sledge. And like I said, because it is kind of a cancellation into the OLL CP, he ends up with a very, very nice U perm, and he locks the NAR average after just 4 solves. And now we get to the final solve of the average. This does end up being his worst solve, but the solution is quite nice. It's just a result of some execution fumbles. So here he does green cross. You can see that these 2 edges are already in place. He's got this edge and this edge. So it's a purely RD gen cross, and he's got a built pair. So it's pretty straightforward. He does the cross by doing R, D2, R2, D prime. It does give him this pair in the front left. Matty, of course, inspects a lot further than me, so I think the pair order doesn't really matter. But for me, I would have maybe done the cross from this angle to get my first pair in the back. But again, Matty probably inspects at least 2 pairs, so it makes less of a difference for him. R, D2, R2, D prime, and then he's going to insert this pair. And then he's going to rotate to solve white and red, which I think is a good pair to go for here. Just the normal solution. Then he's going to do a U prime and actually bring out this pair. And here you have a choice. You can either rotate this way or rotate the other way. Matty rotates this way because I guess he would prefer to have his last pair in the front. And it's a free pair. He inserts this with a hedge, OK-ish OLL and OK-ish PLL. So I think over here, Matty's cross plus 1 solution is pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a 4 mover cross into a free pair. Doesn't really get much better than that. But I do think he could have dealt with the continuation a little bit differently. So I think this is fine. Now, if he just solved the second pair normally, he could have solved this pair to the back rotationless, like that. But I think Matty doesn't really do that many F moves in his F12, which is good because there's a certain fluidity that you get with RUL, which is hard to replicate with RUF. But there is another cool thing he could have done in this specific instance. So if your second pair is diagonal to your first pair and it's a built pair, you can actually do a very cool subset called JSS, Jaden's second slot. So in this case, actually the remaining F12 edges line up extremely nicely. So here he could do R prime F and then insert this pair to the back by doing U prime R. And then he could solve this pair just like that. And it ends up giving him a nice OLL into a pretty decent PLL as well. Of course, this is an extremely niche subset. Not that many solvers actually use it, but in this case, it would have given him a pretty extraordinary F12, I would say. But still, I think his solution over here was pretty nice.
So the first question, how do I feel? Okay, well, I'll tell you one thing. I've only been that excited probably like five other times in my cubing career. So usually I'm a very emotionless. I try and keep my emotions to zero when I'm cubing in competition. I rarely do fist pumps or anything, but yeah, I let a good fist pump out there because that was a good moment for me. Especially after the force solve too. That's pretty crazy. Number 2, going into the round. Okay. It's not like I was expecting sub 5, but I wouldn't be surprised if I got sub 5 because I got 526 first round. I mean, that was a solid average for me. And when I was warming up in the green room for the second round, I was just getting a lot of like mid 4 averages, which I usually do, but they were a little more frequent than usual. So I knew I was solving well. So I was not necessarily expecting a sub 5, but if I got it, I wasn't surprised that I got it. Let's say that. Individual solves. Okay, I mean, I don't think any of the solves are remarkable because like for people who are used to seeing like basic CFOP solutions, maybe they look pretty weird or interesting, but for me, I kind of just do those wacky solutions on every solve, so there wasn't anything particularly interesting other than my VLS on the last solve, which was really, really important because if I did the normal OLO, I would have got a G perm with the weird AUF, I think. So that would have been harder for me to execute under that huge pressure rather than just doing the VLS U perm. So yeah, I think that was definitely the single like few milliseconds that defined the solve is when I decided to do VLS instead of just doing OLO PLO. What cube? I will not share the cube right now because we're working on something. So yeah. V100 is actually really, really good. Corner cutting is probably the best I've seen out of a GAN cube, but I haven't really got much time to practice with it, so I'm not using it right now. My practice routine, I mean, I haven't been able to practice really at all before the All-Stars because of my classes and stuff. I think I've been only practicing 3x3, so maybe that focus on 3x3 helped me with my 3x3 results rather than having like big cubes in my head like I usually do. And yeah, what cubers? Definitely Felix. I mean, I've incorporated techniques from every single top solver since 2016, but Felix has definitely had the most impact on my solving. And my next goal, I mean, in the near future, obviously just get PRs, which assuming other people don't break NAR, that would be just NARs if I break my PR. So that's a good feeling, and I hope to break my PR in the near future. But yeah, in the relatively far future, 4.5 is definitely a goal. Will it happen in the next coming months? I'm not sure, but hopefully it'll happen eventually.